Fat Boy and Company, the final piece, I hope, putting it all together. As you can see, the lawns have been laid out. Then the next step would be to mount the building and also the palisade fencing. But before that can be done, there is a little stone pathway that needs to be glued in, and I'm just going to be lazy and just bend it to get the correct length and then cut that and glue that in place. And for cutting, I'm just going to use a scissor. Let's get some decent lighting. Right, and there's a little bit of white that can be trimmed off. Right, now let's see how that fits in. Very, very nicely. So now let us get some glue down there. And I'm still using the craft glue as my supplier is still out of spray glue. And again, a scrap piece of cardstock to spread the glue around and make it nice and evenly spread all over that area, and then leave it to get tacky for a little while. And then let's find the grey stone. In reality, it's actually a red stone path, but I do not have brick paper that resemble the red stone, so we're going to use some modeler's license and use a bit of grey stone, as long as you don't confuse it with Tarzan and grey stone and the Legend of the Apes, then I am happy. Right, now let us see if we put the model in there. Yeah, I think that fits very, very nicely. I'm just going to move my overhead light so that it actually lights from this side. Yeah, that looks not bad at all. We may just fill in with some more grass a bit later, because that grass seemed to be a little bit on the sparse side. Then the other thing we need to do is the rail from the building down into the steps, and let us see if we can manage to put it in place. I know yesterday I battled, but let's see. There's a hole that was drilled there, and there's one in the bottom, and wow, lo and behold, it went in quite easily. Now we need to just secure that with a little dab of super glue, and to make sure that I do not have a huge blob of super glue all over the building, I put a little drop on a piece of wood, and then I would use, this is a micro brush that has seen better days, but the little plastic nip at the end there is perfect for applying super glue, like in this case, just touching it. And when it comes to the building side as well, just touching it a little bit more on the building side, just to hold it in place, and that is secure. So the building, barring the roof that must still be installed, is now complete. Now it is the landscape. And one other thing that needs to be done, if we look at the picture, if I can locate that picture, it is not very visible, but next to the building on the left there is a tar driveway, if I recall correctly, but there's definitely a driveway, either cement or tar. For the model build I'm going to make it tar, as that is the easiest. And to represent tar, I am using a 1200 grit sandpaper that I will cut to fit there. Again, using the lazy method of just seeing, okay, that will fit, and then we can just fold it down to where the end of the block is, and on this side fold it down, and then we can just cut it. Again, sandpaper is easy to cut with a pair of scissors, and then later we can trim it to the exact size. Right, let's see, we have now cut it. Not too bad. There's a small little piece that needs to be trimmed off at the back, as you can see where it bends, but that is going to be better done with a knife. So let me find a ruler and a knife and trim that little piece off. And this time I'm using a hobby knife, not the X-Acto knife. The sandpaper is a bit tougher, but the hobby knife would also, the X-Acto would also have worked, but this is what I had handy now. So I am just making many light cuts through the sandpaper, and that section has been cut off. Now let us fit. Perfect. Now we just need to glue it in place and weigh down. Let's remove all the cutting material, knife and the other magodis, and let us get some of the craft glue and spread that down this whole area. Making sure the edges are well covered, because that is where these things normally start to peel, and we don't want that to happen with this build. Right, and then let us find a piece of cardstock, and let us start from this side and spread the glue, and back that way again. Right, and then just to be on the safe side, seeing if I have another piece of wood somewhere that I can quickly use, I want to also put some of the glue on the back of the sandpaper. So let us just spread some of that glue on the sandpaper. Alright, and there's a bit too much on the edge there, don't want it, but we can clear that up once the sandpaper is down. So let us see if we now very carefully lay the sandpaper down, making sure it lines up right to the edge, front and back. And then we need to put a weight on that. I will quickly pause and go get a weight. Good, I have placed the weight on the tar road. We shall weather the tar road a bit later. Then the next steps would be to add the palisade fencing, and there I'm going to just put a dab of glue on each of the pillars of the palisade fencing. If again I can get, or let me rather do it this way as well, put a little blob of glue on the block of wood and use my trusty old piece of cardstock. Dab, dab, dab. And let's install. I just have to be careful, as the paint is a enamel based paint, and when I sprayed it, it was a hot or hottish day, but not extremely so hot and humid, so the paint is still a little bit tacky, believe it or not, about 5 days down the line after it had been sprayed. So I need to make sure that the glue holds and not the paint hold onto my fingers. Alright, and then there's another piece of fencing that runs down. Okay, that tells me that one needs some more glue. And hopefully this glue will dry perfectly clear, but if there's too much, again, a trusty little piece of cardstock, wipe it off and wipe it off. And so when the glue dries completely clear, it shall be invisible. And so there was another piece of fencing that ran down the side. But that was not on a little built-up wall, so we need to also install the other piece of fencing. And then a bit later we shall just touch up with some of the scenery. So that is the yard done. And there's one more detail for the yard, and that is my friend's motorcycle. Now this is not the exact model that he rides, but it looks similar, and he normally parks it right there in front of the shop. So I'm going to first have to make a little kickstand. I've already drilled a small hole into the side of the motorcycle at the bottom. If it's deep enough, I do not know. I'll see if I can find a little piece of wire that I can put into that hole and let the bike stand where he normally stands. Yeah, I have found a resistor, and I think the wire and the end of the resistor might just be the correct thickness. So I'll see if that is going to fit in. Otherwise it's just going to be glued underneath just to help make a kickstand. So come, let's see if we can drill another small hole into the sump of the motorcycle, just to get that wire a little place where it can actually go into. I think there's enough of an indent right now. Maybe we can try a little bit more, get it a bit deeper. Alright, now let's see if we try some fresh super glue. Just a little dot. And then let's try the piece of wire still attached to the resistor. I'll cut that off just now and stick that into the little hole. And yeah, now it just needs to hang on like Sloopy. Hang on Sloopy until it's a bit drier, and then I can just cut it and mount the motorcycle. And let's see if the road seems to have dried quite nicely, and on the one side of the road there's a different type of palisade fencing, so we can also install that. Again, let's see if there's still some glue somewhere. No, this is all dry and that is too tacky already, but maybe we can use some of the super glue. And let's see if we can get this palisade to stand very nicely. Yep. And let's put the building there, just to get the idea. And then my friend's son has got a little panel van that he drives, and that is going to be standing right here, ready to enter. And there's a gate that comes across there that we need to still cut to fit there, and then I'll have to just get another small piece of palisade fencing to fit in by the side, that side. Now let's hold thumbs and see if the wire has actually glued nicely into the bike. It seemed to have, but now we just need to bend it a little bit, and I'm afraid if I bend it, it might just come out of the hole again. But let's see. There we are. That looks not too bad at all. But in order to make that a little bit sturdier, I'm going to just drag the tires through some glue. It's quite tacky already. And then we can plant the motorcycle on the grass. And the panel van also needs to have a bit of detail. The tail lights must be painted red, so that's just a pinprick of red, but it will make the difference. It's amazing how quickly a workbench gets crowded, but I would like now to, I found a piece of fencing that will fit at the back there, but it's white, it needs to be painted green, and then also I'm going to do the two little brake lights on the vehicle. Luckily YouTube does not transfer smells, but enamel paint does not have the best smell around, so be grateful that you are not sitting with me in my workshop right now. I should actually be wearing a respirator, but since it is a very small piece that I'm painting, I am giving that one a pass for tonight for wearing a respirator. And I'll see if this one will dry sufficiently that we can actually paint the backside as well. And that is painted with Humbrol number 2. And to clean, I've got some thinners in just a cap from one of the bottles and a paper towel, and then I just get all the paint out of the bristles and run it on the paper towel, turning the brush, dipping it into the thinners and repeating the process until I can see there is no more paint coming from the bristles when I turn it, and then the brush is very close to being very clean. Now the next very, very, very gentle work, and that is the little red lights. If it doesn't work, we can always just repaint it, but you literally need a pinprick. So I'm just going to use the same, and that might even look too big, little handle from one of the micro brushes, and I can't seem to touch the little light effectively enough. Maybe a little bit more paint. That seems now like it could be too much paint. Just need a very, very small dab. If I can just support my hand as well. But I think you can see the little red. Just going to try one more time to get a bit of paint on there. Make it perhaps a little darker, a little more visible. Yeah, I think that is now a little more visible. And the same process for cleaning, just dip that little handle into the thinners and then drag it over the paper towel whilst turning it until all the paint is off it. And close the tin of paint and store it. This was number 60 Humbrol Matte Red. There's still a small area that needs to be grassed over, so I'm going to do that now as well. It's a very small area, and I'm just going to put a dab of glue down and then find my trusty old piece of cardstock and spread the glue around. And then apply some grass in that specific area. And there's some of the grass that we applied yesterday that is a bit sparse, so I'm just going to go across that too. And I'll show you a technique that I use for precision application of scenery material. My trusty old tea strainer and a funnel with a very small tip at the bottom, and tea strainer over the funnel. This requires about 5 or 6 hands, but since I've only got 2, I make do with 2. and you hold the funnel and the T-strainer, and then you just gently tap. So we can do with a bit more grass. Just going over the other areas where there's little sparse areas. Right, and then the balance back into the bottle where the grass was originally kept. Then we can just pat that down into the glue gently. And the other areas where the glue has already dried, I'm going to see if I can manage to get some isopropyl alcohol to spray. I tried yesterday and it was not, unless I need to put a bit more in the bottle. It was not spraying, so let me try putting some more in the bottle and see if it will spray. It definitely helps to have enough IPA in the bottle. Just wetting it with the IPA, and then I'm going to add a little bit of glue onto the areas that I have regrassed, and that should hopefully just flow in very nicely. So let me get my glue. Okay, this is my normal glue mixture, a bit of white glue, PVA glue, with some 50% water and a few drops of detergent. And see, with the IPA, it just flows into the scenery material. I know there I added some more, and over here was some more grass added. And over there. And let me just find a piece of paper towel to pick up that area that the glue has fallen where it's not supposed to be, on the base. Okay, now we can just wait for this to dry, which will hopefully be by tomorrow morning. And let's just also clear the road. Right, so there is the base almost complete. There's one more thing that I can do now, and that is to add the gate. There's a sliding gate or electric gate that controls the access, and that gate sits right over here. So let us see what methods we can use, but I think if I just super glue it to the pillar, it will be fine. So let us get some super glue, and again I'm going to just put the drop of super glue on the block of wood, and this time I'm going to apply it with a toothpick onto the pillar. And then I also think I'm going to apply some, and this time I'm just going to dip the gate straight into the super glue, and let's see if we come on. battling a bit. I'm trying to get it to go in between two of the slats, but okay, that seemed to be working. If it will now just sit and dry. Let's see if it's not completely level. Must come down a little bit on this side. No, some more glue. And now let's see if we just smear that side of the gate with the glue. Okay, I think the glue needs to go a little bit further onto that gate. Alright, that looks good. The gate in place, and then that one little piece still needs another coat of paint, and the opposite side also needs some paint. That is almost touch dry, so I will flip it over and see if we can give that side a coat of paint, and then let us park the vehicle in there. That just fits right up against the gate. And the building, the roof just has to be glued in place still, and there's a small little piece that needs to still get some scenery done right underneath the palisade on that side, but I think that can also be done with a bit of greenery, and just very gently put some glue down. But let's first wait for that to dry. That is there at the moment, and then we can bring some more glue in. So I think this is almost complete. There's one little piece of fencing to go in, and then this build is complete. So I'm going to stop the video here, paint the fencing and wait for it to dry, and hopefully tomorrow morning I will install it. Installation of the final piece of palisade for the Fat Boy and Company build. Let us just fit the building, and then there is that little gap between the gate and the building. I have painted a piece of palisade that must now just slide in there. And that must now just be glued in. So let us find some glue. I think where that one is right now. If we take the building out, it is almost sticking because of the tackiness. And let's find some of the glue that I've been using. Again, just a small dab, and let us just remove that and dab the ends into the glue. And stick it onto the pillar. of course, now that you want the glue to hold, it will not. Alright, and then I also said we will do some weathering of the driveway, the tar driveway. So let me quickly get a small brush and then we can do that. The weathering of the driveway, I'm using some white chalk, just gently putting it on the bristles of the brush, and it also continues past the gate. But this is very, very light. I will just now see if I can actually lighten it some more, and that is done by just rubbing a finger over it and perhaps blowing off some of the chalk. And just brushing it away. Luckily this will not be very visible as the panel van will be parked here, but on the opposite side we can have a bit more. Now let me see if I can get my finger in and just smear it with my finger. Just brush it in so it's a bit lighter. I think right up to the gate we need another few drops. See where the vehicles normally travel. And then I think I need a little bit something harder just to and then perhaps just a little bit of dampness to just lighten that piece by the gate. Is very, very dark. So half a drop of water or IPA might just... Let's see now the weathering has been done. Let's bring the building in. There's a little bit to be done with that. And let's add the roof. And the vehicle.